Hey everyone, I am Michael Roviello. I'm one of the co-founders of Optimize, a human optimization center here in Phoenix, Arizona, and also Tempe, Arizona. I'm also a Wim Hof Method certified level 2 instructor. So I've trained under the Wim Hof program. I've trained with Wim, I've trained with his family, I've trained with his top instructors around the globe. And I practice deliberate cold exposure on a daily basis. We have two facilities here in Phoenix, and I want to talk to you more about cold water therapy. It is a huge buzz. You have everybody doing it. You have Joe Rogan talking about cold water therapy on his podcast. You have Andrew Huberman, a Stanford scientist, talking a lot about cold water therapy, the science, the research, the benefits. It's been an explosion in the last 5 years, and I want to say even a bigger explosion just in the last 2 years with a lot of celebrities and kind of very famous public speakers um, getting on the bandwagon of cold water therapy. What I'm here to tell you is a little bit about the science and the research for those who may not be aware. I want to simplify the benefits of cold water therapy because people start throwing out all these different terms and it can get confusing very fast and maybe take you away from understanding what's happening inside the body. And also give you a little bit of history on cold water therapy. And although it might seem like this popular fad, it's actually a really old technique that's been going on for a long time. So let's start with the science. So what's actually happening when you go into cold water therapy? It's very simple. It's putting your body into a stress response. You're basically asking for a good dose of stress. Every time you step into an ice bath, a cold water therapy device of some kind, a cold lake, a cold ocean, you are telling your body to basically go into a stress response. And because it's so cold, it takes your nervous system and it puts it into fight or flight very quickly. The sauna is quite opposite. That's more of a gradual fight or flight. It's gradually going to take you and your nervous system into that fight or flight. But cold water therapy is immediate, especially the colder the temperature. Especially when you get below 50 degrees, you start to get into the 40s and the 30s, immediate fight or flight response. So why in the world would you want to give yourself basically a mini panic attack? Well, you're training many different systems in the body. One, you're training your stress response because you're teaching your nervous system what a big dose of stress looks like. And there's a lot of benefit that can come just from that alone. Two, every time you go into the stress response, your body starts to increase a very specific hormone. This hormone is called norepinephrine, and norepinephrine is responsible for a variety of different things. It is a fight or flight hormone. It has been shown to be lower in people who are chronically depressed, so you're actually getting a big dose of this. You're also getting a dose of dopamine, and dopamine is related to this kind of motivation factor to like get up and get going and go out there and do something. It's a very invigorating type of molecule that kind of gets your body up and going. So obviously if you're depressed, you could potentially have low dopamine as well. So one of the things you're giving yourself is a huge dose, a very large dose of norepinephrine. And I believe the science says at 40 degrees, you're getting at 30 seconds, you're getting a twofold increase in norepinephrine. Standard protocol for ice baths, typically people are doing about 2 to 3 minutes. So if you're doing 2 to 3 minutes in 42 degrees or 32 degrees, just think of the dose of norepinephrine that you're getting. So keep that in mind. Now, why would you be so interested in getting a big dose of norepinephrine? Norepinephrine has been shown to decrease pro-inflammatory cytokines, and what that means is inflammation. Basically, it helps to reduce inflammation temporarily in the body, so it gives you some relief. A lot of people have a lot more inflammation than they might think. Most people know that they have inflammation. Obviously, when they have an injury, if you have an ache or a pain, you know, oh, the area is inflamed. It's puffy, it's red, it's sensitive, I'm inflamed. But a lot of times you're walking around actually with a pretty decent amount of inflammation. One of the inflammation tests that you can get from your doctor is called C-reactive protein. It's a way to measure this pro-inflammatory cytokine that's in your blood. You can actually get a gauge of what inflammation is like in your body. So norepinephrine helps to decrease inflammation. It also has a very specific change in your mood because it is a fight or flight hormone. And if you think about fight or flight, like what's happening in fight or flight, obviously all of the things that could have, should have, would have kind of go out the door, and you become very much focused on the here and the now and the current situation, because you either have to fight or you have to flight to get away. And all of that energy is also sent to the extremities. So there's a lot of things happening in a fight or flight response. And every time you step into that ice bath, you are asking to go into a fight or flight. Now, your first ice bath can be very, very different than your 50th ice bath, because your nervous system is going to be way more trained and adaptive to this type of stressor. Just like exercise. If you've never exercised in your life and then you go hike a very difficult hike, or you got, trained to basically run up this mountain, your body is going to be toast. If you're doing that periodically, you're working through that, you're training by doing that similar type of exercise, your body's going to be way more adapted to that because it kind of knows what's coming, right? And this whole process that we're talking about, this reactive or this reaction to stress, is hormesis. It's the what doesn't kill you makes you stronger type of stress. That's a term that I like to use, that I read an article written by Dave Asprey. So I like to use that term because I think that's easy for people to understand. You're giving yourself a low dose stress that's creating a reaction. You're training your nervous system how to adapt and react to that stressor, and therefore you're becoming more resilient. So the ice bath is a training ground. You're using deliberate cold exposure to train your mind, your body, and what I like to say as well is your spirit, because I use ice baths to go in a very deep meditative process. I take my focus inward, I close my eyes, I take all of the techniques that I would use in a meditation or even in a float tank. I'm slowing my breathing down, I'm working on slowing my heart rate down, which, by the way, if you lower your respiratory rate, you will lower your heart rate. I'm closing my eyes. I'm placing my attention inward versus outward. And what that is also doing for me, it is slowing down my brain waves, getting my brain waves out of high beta, which would be related to the stress brain waves, into what we would call alpha waves and theta waves, more suggestible states. So when I'm in these highly suggestible states, based on research and data of alpha waves and theta waves, then what I'm going to do is try to make some suggestion. So I use this 2 to 3 minute, 4 minute period in the ice bath to actually use positive affirmations. I use prayers, traditional prayers. I use I am statements, I am love, I am free, all kinds of high vibrational words, and the repetitiveness of these words really help to kind of drive in these affirmations and also what I like to refer to as attunements. So keep that in mind. You are using a meditative technique to go into the ice baths. You're kind of checking 2 boxes. I'm meditating and I'm using deliberate cold exposure. My body's going through a natural reaction of stress. I'm using my breathing techniques and my internal focus to slow my respiratory rate down, to slow my heart rate down. And those things are all helping me to feel more calm in the face of stress. And as you practice that over and over and over again on a routine basis, you will become less reactive to stress and ultimately more mentally, emotionally, and physically resilient. That's what has happened for me over the years through this training. And my history and background is I was a helicopter search and rescue swimmer in the US Navy, where we used a lot of stressful situations to basically learn how we would react and adapt to stress, because that type of job required a type of personality that can handle stress and be able to think calmly through stress. And ice baths have been an amazing tool for me to help to let a lot of things go emotionally, to get into these deeper meditative states so that I can find the silence or the peace within. It's actually helped my meditation tremendously, and all these other benefits that most people don't talk about besides the common ones like the anti-inflammatory effect and the improvement in circulation by making your vascular system more fluid because you're kind of opening and closing all these different valves within your vascular system. That's also a benefit, is that improved circulation. But it seems very faddish right now because you have so many people talking about it. You have the Joe Rogans talking about it, Andrew Huberman, and many other popular people in the public eye talking about cold water therapy, deliberate cold exposure. But I've done some research, and actually it's really old. It's an old technique that's been used by indigenous cultures all over the globe. It doesn't matter if it's European history and you go into the northern climates of the tribes that existed in Northern Europe, the people of Finland, and how they utilized cold therapy as not only a medicinal practice for their health, but also as a spiritual practice. Or if you go all the way to the other side of the globe to South America and you study the Queros, which are direct descendants of the Inca, and they live in the Andes Mountains, very, very high up in the Andes Mountains, and there's these big lakes that exist up there, obviously very cold water because of the altitude, the climate, and the glaciers that are melting and creating these lakes. And they use those lakes for spiritual practice where they use the cold water almost as a cleansing energy to cleanse their spirit before they participate in different ceremonial practices that have been part of their lineage for many years. If you go into other areas of the globe and you go further south in Europe to where the Romans were, they were also using a variety of warm water, which is very relaxing. Anything warm is typically very relaxing, like a jacuzzi, and then cold water therapy, which is very energizing. It creates a lot of energy, and if you've ever been in an ice bath and you've done deliberate cold exposure, then you know when you get out of the ice bath, you feel that jolt of energy, that kind of natural high that you get from the release of dopamine and norepinephrine and all the other chemistry that's happening inside your body. So no matter where I looked around the globe, I found different cultures using cold water therapy for medical practices, for healing, and also for spiritual practices. There's another group that's all the way on the other side of the globe in Japan. They're called the Misagi Japanese Shinto practice. I probably did not say that right, but they are a group of people that will use chanting. And they not only use chanting, but they also use beads and different prayers, but they'll allow cold water, waterfalls to run through their body. And if you've ever been in a running water scenario, like in a natural river or a small waterfall where the water is running over you, it feels like electricity. So the energy that it's giving your body and your cells, and then using these prayers and attunements to get into these basically transcendental states, using the power of words and language and prayer in combination with the water element of nature. So there's a lot of practices all over the globe. And also remember that hot water heaters is a relatively new thing for mankind. I mean, anywhere in the United States, of course, if you go to take a shower, your house, the hotel, there's going to be a warm water option and a cold water option. And that is a wonderful, wonderful benefit that we have here, but that is not reality for most of the world. They do not have the energy production to heat that water, to provide warm water directly to your shower. So they have no choice but cold water. And when I was in the Amazon jungle, and everyone would think, oh, the Amazon jungle, it's so hot and it's warm there all the time, and there's probably no existence of cold water therapy because it's the Amazon, it's very close to the equator. In fact, the showers were very cold, especially in the mornings when I was on retreat there in Peru. So people are pretty much taking cold showers all over the world. This is free medicine that I like to say that exists out there. There's been some good research on the therapeutic benefits of cold water and cold showers, and Wim Hof has obviously been the biggest man on stage talking about cold water therapy. He's the one who's really brought cold water therapy to the forefront of our consciousness. He's really the pioneer in all of this, because prior to the Wim Hof method and Wim Hof talking about deliberate cold exposure, you really didn't see it that much. You saw it in athletic settings, but typically they were just kind of icing their legs. They weren't really using a meditative practice. They were just kind of gritting it out. And Wim Hof kind of changed the way we look and see cold water, and he likes to refer to the cold as his teacher. He refers to the cold as kind of an energy, as a teacher, as an element that we can all learn from. And I've tapped into that, and the power of cold water therapy and breathing, and the combination of the two is an amazing and powerful free therapy that we have basically at our fingertips anywhere we go. So there's a little bit of the science, the therapeutic benefits, what we're trying to achieve with cold water therapy, and then of course some of the history and the origins. I'll be posting more videos about techniques, science, therapeutic benefits of all of the things that we offer at Optimize. If you live in the Phoenix area, come visit us. Our website is below. You can book your first time session. And yeah, follow and subscribe for more videos. I'm Michael. I'm out. Thank you very much for listening.